Hi folks, Scott from IT Rockstars here. Welcome to today's show. On the show today we have Graham Forbes of Precise Communications. I recorded this interview over the phone with Graham. Graham runs a PR agency based in Aberdeen, Scotland. I've known Graham for quite a few years now. We originally met when he was servicing the old managed service provider that I used to work for at the time. We also used to attend the same BNI chapter, so I've known him for a number of years, and I thought it'd be a really good idea to, from an IT business owners or MSP owners perspective, see what an actual press release agency, a PR firm, can do for your business. So in this interview, I asked Graham a set of questions in regards to some of the benefits you can expect from doing a press release or multiple press releases, and the types of questions that you should have top of mind in this interview. The whole interview itself forms part of a book chapter. I'm currently writing a book. It's called Bear Attack SEO for Managed Service Providers. And press releases actually feed in quite well to search engine optimization for your website. So that's one of the reasons that I'm actually interviewing Graham in this interview over the phone. Anyway, we'll get on with the interview. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks, folks. So, I'll start with, if you're an IT firm, why exactly would you employ a PR firm? What would the reasons be behind that? What are the main, I guess, business benefits, or what would the goals be behind that? Why would you go down that route?
I suppose the easiest place to start would be if you flip that question on its head. Why would an oil and gas company hire an IT company rather than do it in-house? And that is probably because it's not something that they're an expert in. It's not something that they have time to do themselves, or it's possibly just something that they don't have any idea where to start. So they could hire an expert. They could probably save some costs rather than a dedicated employee doing it if they could outsource that service.
Okay.
Easiest place to start. Secondly, there needs to be a reason why, and in the main, it's to win more business. So
that's the reason, yeah.
Usually they would want to at least raise their profile, and then theoretically that should result in more business. It can be a case of educating both new and existing customers about sort of key products and services. It can be about educating the market about certain expertise you might have. So, cybersecurity would be one area where, it's a problem that affects a broad range of businesses, and you want to position yourself as an expert in that field.
Okay.
A cost-effective way of promoting your business, as opposed to, advertising, for example.
I see. Okay. So you mentioned there sort of increasing or educating your audience, something like cybersecurity. Is that, I take it that you're almost like leveraging, where this is going to be publicated to, and you're leveraging the audience. And that, I guess, that would help increase almost like your authority or reputation locally as an IT provider.
Possibly. So not only would you probably, engage in a PR campaign or anything like that to try and win new business, it can also build goodwill. So that could be amongst your existing clients, contacts. It's not necessarily going to be an overnight thing. If you're doing it, regularly, and you will become known as an expert in that area. And sometimes it needs a little bit of repetition, maybe 4 or 5 times before the message can sink in. Okay. But it's a long-term game.
All right, so you mentioned there 4 or 5 times before a message can sink in. Now, if you were to go down this route and you were fully on board with a PR campaign and trying to embed yourself, if you were, say your goal was you wanted to have sort of 6 press releases, should you, from a scheduling perspective, the calendar year, what would be the factors? How would that look like, and what would maybe be the factors that come into play with that? Would you do a release, 5 or 6 releases within the course of a year? Is that too many? Is there a limit, or what's the?
There's no exact science to it. It depends on the nature of the business. Some businesses naturally have more news to share than others. That can be, based on number of staff, number of offices and operations that they have. It can be based on the number of markets they're operating in around the world. You would also probably ramp up any sort of PR activity around about any sort of key dates in the industry calendar. So that might be a major trade exhibition or conference. If you're exhibiting at one of these events, then you would want to coincide your PR activity with your presence at that event and any other marketing activity that you're carrying out.
Okay. From the IT...
I would also warn against doing anything too regularly.
Yeah.
You don't need to be doing something every week or every month unless there's a genuine story to tell or a need to do so. If you do things too frequently, it can lead to some overexposure, and people may just switch off.
Okay.
If it's too repetitive.
All right, that's good to know. So, from an IT provider's perspective, how would you choose, the correct PR firm to work with or consultant to work with? What should you be looking for?
Personally, I would go with the personal relationship as being a key part of that. You need to trust and respect the person that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you would want somebody who's got a decent track record, particularly if you're working in a specialist area or a specialist market. And you may want to phase that relationship over, say, a 3-month period or a 6-month period or a year-long period. It depends on how quickly you need to be seeing results. If you've got a specific aim in mind, then you might need to be more selective in who you engage with in terms of that provider.
Okay. All right. So, let's say we've chosen our PR firm. We've found a company that we like or an individual that we like. What does the PR process look like in regards to how would we get started? What should we be thinking about as an IT business when we're entering into a relationship with this PR firm? What are the type of things that we should have top of mind?
Mm-hmm. I alluded to this earlier, but the time that the IT business, the key directors, the key spokespeople for the organisation, the time that they have available is critical. To have an effective PR campaign or strategy, it's very much a two-way relationship.
Okay.
So not only does the PR person need to, commit to their time and energy, but they will probably need some sort of minimum buy-in from the people in charge of the client's organisation. And that could be something as simple as, a monthly meeting or regular phone calls. But if there goes sort of prolonged periods where, there's no communication between the client and the PR provider, then it'll soon kind of grind to a halt.
Okay.
So certainly at the outset, they need to accept that there's maybe a little bit of a time commitment on their end to provide the PR person with the information that they'll need to make the campaign a success.
Mm-hmm.
They'll then also need to think about their primary audience. So it may be that they're wanting to speak just to industry professionals. It may be that they want to speak to people in the general business community, for example, a finance director.
Yeah.
And based on that decision, then they would probably tailor their messaging,
okay,
which would inform kind of the level of jargon and technical information you communicate as well.
So the finance director usually, I know here in the UK anyway, finance directors are usually kind of held responsible for the IT function within the business. So that is a prime candidate or a prime target. So you mentioned there the technical writing. What would be, how would you go around targeting, a financial director for this press release?
So there's definitely a growing trend towards more online media, but still print media is very effective in terms of targeting senior decision makers, executives, particularly in more corporate organizations.
Okay.
So you may want to target kind of the key local and regional business press.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably worthwhile identifying the publications that they read in their own time as well. Now that might be a specific industry magazine, but there's a lot of choice in terms of media outlets, but you need to find the ones that will give you the best return.
Okay, it's useful to know. So start thinking about, or start doing some research, and the type of magazines that finance director is going to pick up or have subscribed to or have going through their mailbox.
Absolutely. If you're looking to target a broad range of industries at one time, then you're probably best suited to go in for the local press.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In terms of a newspaper. Certainly, you wouldn't expect a finance director to be reading a corporation to be reading an IT industry magazine, unless they were specifically involved in the IT department.
Okay.
You'd be more likely to, find a technical manager or technical director reading that kind of publication. Okay. In which case you can use more jargon, you can be technical in the messaging, as I said. Okay.
All right. Good to know. All right. On to our next question here, then, Graham. It's number 4 here in my list. How much does it cost if I want to hire a PR firm?
The magic question.
Yeah. How much is it going to cost? Now, obviously, I'm not asking you personally, but generally. Or...
Yeah. No. To give you an indication, it depends on the level of output and the expectations of the client, really. So, for example, if there's an expectation that something new content will be produced on a daily or a weekly basis, then you would expect that it's going to cost much more than doing something less frequently, every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, for example.
Okay.
That would again be dependent on the size and not only the organization but also the number of people within the organization. I mean, a smaller company is unlikely to have the level of news that a corporation that employs thousands of people would.
Yeah.
So the cost would probably be influenced by the size of the company, and also the market that it's operating in. Is it only operating at a local level, or is it going across the UK, going across the USA, or even internationally?
Okay. So there's a few factors in there that sort of decide that cost.
So, for example, a one-man band is probably focused on growing his or her business in their local community first and foremost.
Yeah.
And because it's a local market, there would be a finite number of sort of outlets for that news to then appear in.
Okay. So,
there would be less need for regular content.
Hey folks, just a quick message from our sponsor of today's show. I'm going to leave you in with this with a problem that I used to have in the industry. I was doing business development and sales, and the biggest problem I had doing that, selling IT services and products, was finding qualified leads. I could quite easily go in, pick up the phone and speak to a potential client, a customer, about our services. It could quite easily go in and talk about the technology and how that technology was going to transform their business. And closing the sale was easy. That was the easy bit. The hardest part that I found, and you might be able to relate to this, was actually finding qualified and potential leads that were interested in taking on our services. This has now been solved. The new book is called Bear Attack SEO for Managed Service Providers. Now, why does it solve this problem partially? Well, you'll hear a lot about marketing on social media and LinkedIn. That's all good, but the problem with that is you're not in front of your customer at the right time in the buying cycle. You can only do that with search engine optimization. You can be in front of your potential client at the right time when they're looking for your services. So if you're interested to know how to do search engine optimization if you're a managed service provider, check out Bear Attack SEO. Just simply Google it and you'll find it on Amazon. Anyway, back to the show, guys. Thanks. most of our managed service providers, IT companies, they usually do tend to operate in a local or regional level. Just because the nature of the business, there is an on-site presence required. It can't usually always be done remotely. So I guess we've got to keep that in mind when we're if we're thinking about the press release.
Certainly, if you were a UK business but working internationally, to target international media, you need to have some sort of direct link to that area. So if you take the Middle East as an example, you might make it relevant to a business issue or an industry event that's happening in that region. Otherwise, it's unlikely to be of interest to the market in the Middle East unless it's relevant to the readership.
Okay, good answer. So where does my press release go? I guess this question is probably, I should have thought this question out a little bit more. Actually, more to the question I've got in my head here, where does the press release go? I guess that's down to the type of people we want to target or the region we want to target, I would assume.
Yeah, so just back to one of your previous questions about the PR process. So there'd be usually a few stages to that, from interviewing the client to gather the relevant information to drafting and editing a press release. And then sort of towards the final stages, you would get ready to distribute that press release to the media. And it would usually be an agreed upon target list. Again, depending on, is it local, national, international? Is it a general release? Is it industry specific?
What bit's more involved from your side? Is it writing the press release, or is it going out to these different sources, for publication?
It varies. What a good PR professional would do is trying to anticipate any questions or any gaps in your press release that a member of the media or a journalist might have. So by doing that earlier on in the process, not only are you helping manage the client's expectations, but you're probably simplifying the process later on in terms of a journalist coming back to you looking for information that you may not have available to you readily.
Okay.
There are instances, obviously, where there's no communication with the journalist. They might just accept your story straight away and use it.
Mm-hmm.
They may come back asking some more information. It's difficult to predict how they'll react.
Is there?
Because it depends on news agenda. It depends on what else is happening.
I see.
Not only in the industry but in the wider world.
And they're particularly looking for a story more than anything else, aren't they? That's the.
They're looking for something that's going to interest their readers. So obviously that varies from who is reading these publications.
Okay.
Whether it's someone with a lot of knowledge of that industry.
Okay. So I've got here, can I write my own press release? Actually, I think maybe a more interesting question would be, have you had anyone ever ask you that before?
I don't know if they were asking me the question specifically. We have had cases where we've had to edit or rewrite press releases.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because the client's gone to some of the trouble of gathering the information, and it's more just a case of how best to present that information.
I see. Okay.
So, for example, something that we would do, like many other PR professionals, is write it in a media-friendly style, which should, in theory, increase its chances of being picked up by journalists.
I see.
So, if you haven't worked as a journalist or you aren't a PR professional, then you're unlikely to know what the style that these specific journalists will use is. And that can be simple things from, capitalizing job titles to, I'm trying to think of the right word.
Okay.
But shorthand expressions for phrases, for example.
I see. Okay.
To even simple sort of grammar and spelling.
Okay, so this is getting into the more technical side. Okay, so
yeah.
So it can be helpful then, if someone was to come to you with their own
It can be
professionals.
helpful. It obviously depends on the person. Now, they may have a good level of writing ability themselves, in which case it's then more a case of just having the industry contacts within the media to effectively place that story.
Okay.
But more often than not, it's a process, and it's more about gathering the information and then the presentation of that information. Whether that's the client does that themselves, whether it's an interview, we might need to ask certain questions, and that they perhaps haven't thought of.
Okay.
Equally, you might have a business who think that they are just doing something that's normal in their business environment.
Yeah.
And that actually it could be newsworthy in its own right.
Oh, I see.
But because they're quite close to it, they might not see that automatically.
Yeah, they're just.
So a fresh pair of eyes can sometimes help that.
Yeah, they're just not aware. Okay. Yeah, really good point there, actually. Yeah, think of the wider, the wider audience and what you're doing. Okay. Now I've got here number 7. We've got here, what are the side effects of a press release? I kind of think we kind of maybe covered that already. In the very first question, why we employ a PR firm, but I don't know, can we hit upon?
There's other aspects we can cover there. So,
okay.
Probably the worst thing that can happen is that you spend a lot of time, producing a press release, going back and forth editing it, and so on, and then it might not be used at all. It might not be of interest to anyone. So we try and minimize the chances of that by thinking, okay, who's the audience here? Information might the journalists be looking for, be that sort of financial information, for example, be that facts and figures, and be that some sort of hook to make it topical for a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's again part of the expertise that a PR professional can bring.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be out with your control. There may be a major news story breaking across all media outlets on the same day. Whether that's an election, whether that's some sort of crisis. Which will obviously limit the chances for further news stories to make it into the mainstream media on that day.
I see. Okay. So you can, in theory, may go to a PR firm, they've done all the work, we've had a really excellent press release put together, and then just because of the news for that day when it was submitted, it gets missed.
Possibly. I mean, it can be a little bit of I'm trying to think of the right word here. There's no guarantees, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
If you were to stick an advert, which is usually more expensive, then you are guaranteed that the story will appear on the day, on the page, in the right publication that you're paying for. With PR, because it's basically unpaid, other than to pay an expert to help produce you, it's out with the control of that professional whether or not the story appears. So you try and do the legwork up front to give it the best possible chance.
Okay. All right.
During coverage.
Okay. The final question I've got here, Graham, then, is I'm an IT business owner. I want to scale my business, and I've come to you to do a press release. What should we base this press release on?
So whether you're a startup or established company, there are a few things that make for a good news story. And quite often, they are signs of company growth, or at least the company going in the right direction. So, for example, you might be moving offices, you might be employing new staff, you might be investing in new equipment, it might be the launch of a new product or service. But there's some kind of sort of news angle to it. Secondly to that, you would want to fit in your key messaging, what makes you unique as a company, what's your USP, what are your key products and services. You would probably want to weave this into your PR release, but it needs to be in a more subtle way. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is have some sort of news angle to kind of, hook people's interest. Okay. And then you can kind of reinforce your own key messages after that. It might be that you don't have any specific company news to share at that time. Yep. In which case you can maybe go down the route of more of an expert commentary or some sort of some sort of opinion piece where you're maybe talking about the industry at large, talking about what needs to be done to educate people in the wider marketplace, for example.
Okay, so one thing I noticed the other day, we had a really warm summer here in Aberdeen, and there was these little flies flying around everywhere. They looked a little bit like wasps, and I was like, what are these? So I go into Google, and there's an article up there. It's a press release, and I think it was the Evening Express, about what these flies were and how harmful they were. How they weren't very harmful at all. A lot of people were worried. Mm-hmm. But within that press release, there was a couple of almost like words of advice from industry experts. We had a pest control expert in there, a guy called Peter Stewart. You might know him, Graham. And he was giving some advice. Now, it didn't actually look like it was a timely article, so it was a news story that had just hit. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming whoever wrote that for the newspaper, they went to Peter Stewart and asked him about his knowledge in this area. Could we do the same from as an IT perspective company? So, we continually hear about cybersecurity breaches from rather large companies, even governments and public bodies. Would that be something that we could do? We could write off the back of a bigger story for our own gain.
It is possible. However, it usually requires a bit of patience and a bit of work in terms of building relationships. So, for example, the journalists writing that story, they're writing it because it's topical. They're writing it because there's a lot of people speaking about it across the city.
Yep.
Now, they may have gone through their own internal records, their internal archives to see previous stories that they've done on a similar topic. They may have contact details, or they may have named or quoted somebody from these particular companies before. So that would be their first point of call. They may also do a little bit of their own research online, in which case they might go for a search engine and look for an expert in that field in the local area.
Yeah.
And then they would get in touch themselves or try and get in touch with that business, probably on the contact details on their website. And it's really just to add a little bit of, further insight to the story. I believe in that story you mentioned as well, they quoted two people, so they showed a little bit of, balance. It wasn't just favouring one company.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because most of the areas that require kind of some sort of expert commentary, there's quite possibly 5 or 6 or 7 different businesses who could all realistically call themselves an expert in certain fields. It can sometimes be a case of building a relationship with that journalist in advance, in the hope that then it might pay off in future in terms of these kind of common opportunities. But I wouldn't say that you could depend on these things, because you don't know when this kind of event is going to happen.
Okay.
However, you can give yourself a better chance by reacting quickly.
Yeah,
now that might be through doing a release of some kind on the back of an event. So you talked about a cybersecurity breach.
Yeah, we seem to have.
Example, if there was a major.
We seem to have a big one every 3 months or so.
Yeah. So, for example, say there's a major security breach on a Monday evening.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the press on the Tuesday. That's when you first hear about it, perhaps. And then you probably want to give yourself within 24 to 48 hours to try and respond to that proactively through putting your own, whether that's a blog, whether that's a press release, whatever it might be, just to kind of jump on the bandwagon slightly. But it will probably benefit your company in doing that, because it'll show that you know what you're talking about with this issue. It's obviously time sensitive. It's obviously on the news agenda anyway. So by doing that, you then may receive certain follow-up calls from journalists who are, covering the story themselves.
Okay.
And putting maybe a local slant on it.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I think it's worth, for IT firms, I think it's maybe one worth thinking about, just because they do happen so regularly at the moment, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. It's giving us a lot of business. Okay. that was all the questions I had, Graham. Now, I'd mentioned at the start of this, I had 8 questions there, and I had 9 and 10 clear. They don't have to be answered, but do you think there's anything that I've maybe missed from this selection of questions that I've come to you with today?
I think just another point on that last question.
Uh-huh.
If we take cybersecurity as an example, now that's something that a lot of people are worried about. They don't necessarily need to, have a degree in IT or any level of, professional competence to be worried about it.
Yeah.
So usually, if you're trying to, position yourself as the experts on an issue that's, making headlines for whatever reason, it would be beneficial to kind of definitely strip away the jargon, but make it almost as simple as possible.
Okay.
So, you might say, what steps can I take now to kind of protect myself against these kind of threats? And it might be as simple as making sure that you change your passwords, for example. But there are obviously more in-depth things you can do. But changing your password might be a simple step that everyone can do. So you try and make it as universal as possible, so you're capturing a broad audience.
I see. Okay, so I've heard about that before, and that's Donald Trump language.
You also don't want to just plug your own products and services too much, because I think that would probably turn people off to the actually important message you're trying to get across. People are quite savvy these days. They know what a sales pitch when they see one.
Yep.
So if you're seen to being sort of generous with your advice, then that should build a bit of goodwill. But sort of small practical steps that people can take to kind of protect themselves is usually a good place to start.
Okay, that's really, really useful. Have that.
And you can always encourage people to get in touch for a more kind of detailed presentation or conversation.
Yeah, sort of maybe call to action at the end of it. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's excellent, Graham. I think that's us. That has been very useful for me. Hopefully being able.
No, thanks very much, Scott.
That's okay. I'll stop the recording now. No, that's been really useful. So I'm hoping, as I say, I'll probably have I'll either form a chapter or a small section in the book. Mm-hmm. My writing skills aren't the greatest, but I'll let you see the draft before.
I'm happy for that.
Before
again, if I think of, I didn't mean to think of any blanks we could fill in. Nothing came to mind immediately.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
If I do think of one or two further questions, then I'll give you a shout as well.
Yeah, as I say,
there might be something we've missed that we've just not realised yet.
Yeah, as I say, it's coming from an IT business owner's perspective. That's who's going to be reading this book. So you're trying to get into their mind and typical questions that they've got when they come to you. So that's why I knew something like cost. That's probably one that you get asked for when you're going to someone for the first time that's doing a press release. So.
I think it's true of any business.
Any service, yeah.
There's always a negotiation, I'm sure.
All right.
But I think usually it becomes less of an issue. If you build a relationship with that person, they can see the benefits of what you're doing.
Yeah, totally.
Also, when you're starting a relationship with a client, then there may be a little bit of a step into the unknown.
Yeah.
Until they can physically see the results, and it might become less important to them.
Okay, folks, so that is the end of the interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get in touch with Graham Forbes, just Google precisecommunications.co.uk. You'll find him on his website, all his contact details. He does have a lot of experience in regards to doing press releases for IT companies. He's a very knowledgeable guy. If you enjoyed the show, that's great. We're planning on doing a number of these videos and podcasts over the next year or so. And the whole purpose behind these is to help IT companies succeed in their business. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks.